Welcome the year 1980, amidst a nation transitioning between decades, a seemingly ordinary coin emerged from the United States Mint, an unassuming quarter dollar that bore the familiar image of George Washington on the obverse and the proud bald eagle on the reverse. At first glance, the 1980 quarter blended in with the billions of others in circulation, jingling in pockets, dropped into vending machines, and collected in piggy banks across the country. But hidden among the countless copies minted that year, whispers of a legend began to surface, rumors of an extremely rare variation, a coin that would come to be known as the $80 million quarter. This wasn't just a tale about metal and minting errors. It was a story wrapped in history, coincidence, and the curious forces of fate and timing. The roots of this iconic coin stretch back to a moment when the American economy was shifting under pressure, inflation was soaring, and the mint was under increased scrutiny to produce precise, cost-effective coinage. Yet in that environment of strict standards, a mistake, or perhaps a miracle, slipped through. As the 1980 quarter began to circulate, nothing appeared unusual. The coins were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, each bearing the typical features: George Washington's profile sculpted with stoic dignity, and the eagle on the reverse, wings spread, standing tall on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. But some time later, a collector noticed something odd. A quarter minted in 1980 displayed properties unlike any other. Its surface shimmered differently. Under magnification, minute details stood out in a way that no other coin from that run did. Soon, numismatists were buzzing. This coin had unusual die markings, subtle anomalies in the lettering, and, most importantly, it was struck on a planchet meant for a foreign currency, or possibly a prototype alloy. It was lighter than a regular quarter and rang with a different tone when dropped on a hard surface. This wasn't just a curiosity. This was a treasure, a one-of-a-kind mistake that had found its way into the hands of a sharp-eyed collector at a flea market in Ohio. The original finder, a retired railroad worker named Harold Jennings, had been casually collecting coins for decades. He knew enough to recognize that this quarter felt different. The dealer who had sold him a bag of mixed change for $5 had no idea what was nestled among the Kennedy halves and wheat pennies. But Harold, with his magnifier and scale, began to suspect he had something exceptional. Still, it took years of inquiry, multiple expert opinions, and the growing reach of online communities before the coin's true value began to emerge. The turning point came when the coin was submitted for certification to one of the world's leading grading services. When the graders placed the coin under their microscopes, gasps were heard in the room. The strike was unusually sharp, the details crisp beyond comparison. The metal composition baffled even experienced metallurgists. The coin's edge had a unique pattern not consistent with quarters of its time. It was clear, this was no ordinary minting. Whether a test piece accidentally released or a hybrid coin born of a transitional phase in mint equipment, the quarter was declared one of a kind. Collectors went wild. Bidding wars erupted in private auctions. One investor from Hong Kong offered over $10 million for the coin, but Harold refused. The coin, to him, was more than just currency. It was history, and it was personal. He had grown up during the Great Depression, and holding such a symbol of fortune reminded him of how far the country, and he himself, had come. Over time, other mysterious 1980 quarters began to appear. A few had double dies. Others seemed to have misaligned strikes or odd reading patterns. But none matched the majesty or mystery of Harold's quarter. It became known in numismatic circles as the Phantom Eagle, because of a barely visible image that appeared under UV light on the reverse, possibly the remnant of a test engraving. Conspiracy theories abounded. Was this a mint worker's personal experiment? A secret commemorative piece? Or simply a cosmic accident? The coin eventually gained legendary status. A museum dedicated to American currency history offered to display it in a climate-controlled, bulletproof case. Harold, now well into his 80s, agreed, but only on the condition that schoolchildren could view it for free. To him, the coin wasn't just about wealth. It was about wonder. About reminding future generations that treasure could be hidden in plain sight, and that sometimes, value comes from the story a thing carries, not just the metal it contains. Years passed, and Harold's coin remained a centerpiece of the museum's Modern Marvels of Numismatics exhibit. Visitors came from across the globe, snapping photos, listening to recordings of Harold telling his story, and reading about the painstaking investigations that traced the coin's origins. The mint, for its part, could never fully explain how the coin came to be. Their records showed nothing unusual. Yet experts continued to speculate, write articles, and publish theories. Then, in a shocking twist, another collector in Oregon claimed to have discovered a second such quarter. But upon close inspection, the new coin was deemed a clever forgery, created using advanced casting techniques. This only added to the original coin's mystique. The attempt at duplication proved how much value, and intrigue, was associated with this humble piece of metal. The forgery, instead of diminishing the legend, amplified it. Harold passed away peacefully in 2023, leaving the coin to his granddaughter, a high school history teacher who had grown up listening to her grandfather's coin tales. She donated it permanently to the museum, where it remains under heavy security, insured for $80 million. The value wasn't arbitrary. It was a symbolic sum, tying the coin's face value, 25 cents, to a figure so astonishing that it echoed the mystery, rarity, and lore surrounding it. To this day, treasure hunters scour garage sales, flea markets, and old change jars, hoping to stumble across something as special. The 1980 quarter has become a beacon, a myth, a dream for collectors. Videos go viral when people claim to have found one. Television specials revisit the coin's origins. And numismatic societies continue to debate its metallurgy, markings, and the true story behind its accidental fame. The $80 million face value isn't just a number. It's a legacy. It's a nod to the power of curiosity, the thrill of discovery, and the belief that sometimes, something priceless might just be hiding in your pocket, waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize it. And for that reason, the 1980 quarter remains one of the most legendary and sought-after coins in American history, not only for its worth, but for the story that lives within its metal core, and in the heart of every dreamer who holds a coin up to the light, hoping to see something more. Next, 1995, tucked quietly into the pockets of millions of Americans, circulated an unassuming piece of metal, a $quarter coin. With George Washington's iconic profile engraved on the obverse, and the heraldic eagle spreading its wings on the reverse, it was one of the countless coins minted that year. But as time passed, a peculiar narrative began to build around this modest coin. Whispers turned into discussions, and discussions into obsession, as coin collectors, historians, and treasure hunters started to recognize the 1995 $quarter not just as a piece of everyday currency, but as a silent witness to a bigger story, one that would, decades later, make its way into collector auctions with valuations soaring into the millions. The United States Mint, renowned for its precision and consistency, minted hundreds of millions of quarters in 1995. Yet, as with all things produced at such scale, anomalies occurred. A handful of these quarters bore minuscule differences, imperfections to the average eye, but unmistakable markers to a trained numismatist. Misaligned dies, double strikes, weak imprints, and off-center mintings became the clues to an unfolding mystery that would put the 1995 quarter on the map of the numismatic elite. As collectors began to comb through bags of coins, stories emerged from small towns and rural communities. One man in Iowa found an unusually heavy 1995 quarter while paying for coffee. Another collector in Arizona discovered a coin with a faint second outline of Washington's profile, an example of a double die obverse. These discoveries sparked a feverish hunt, leading coin enthusiasts into flea markets, estate sales, and old drawers in search of the elusive 1995 anomalies. The spike in interest wasn't solely due to the errors. It was the combination of rarity, curiosity, and the layered history behind each piece that made the 1995 quarter more than just a coin. It became a canvas on which the American experience was painted, bearing the weight of economic uncertainty, shifting technologies, and a country on the brink of a digital revolution. In the early 2000s, as online marketplaces gained traction, the value of rare coins began to climb. Listings featuring the 1995 quarter with specific minting errors started fetching hundreds, and then thousands, of dollars. Word spread rapidly. Articles were written, documentaries hinted at mysterious valuations, and high-profile coin dealers began referring to the 1995 quarter as a sleeper treasure. Some even went so far as to suggest that hidden among the standard-issue quarters were a few exceptionally rare variants, prototypes, test strikes, or perhaps coins minted using dies intended for other denominations. One such coin surfaced in 2012. A collector in Pennsylvania, known for scouring bank rolls in his spare time, stumbled upon a coin that felt oddly smooth. Upon inspection, he realized that the quarter was missing its reeded edge. More puzzling was the faint trace of a different design beneath Washington's portrait. When experts examined it, they theorized it might have been struck on a foreign planchet, a rare and highly collectible error. The coin was eventually sold in a private auction for over $45,000, triggering a fresh wave of interest. The excitement was compounded by rumors of a specific batch of 1,995 quarters minted in Philadelphia using experimental metal alloys. These coins, it was said, possessed a different luster and sound when dropped, slightly more golden in tone and lighter in weight. Though the U.S. Mint never confirmed the existence of such a batch, collectors have since held on to these coins with tight fists, speculating their value in the millions if authenticated. The highest recorded sale of a 1995 quarter occurred in 2024 during a private collector's auction in New York. A quarter with a combination of errors, a double die obverse, off-center strike, and struck on a nickel planchet, was bid up to an astonishing $95 million. The coin's provenance, traced back through several notable collectors and accompanied by meticulous documentation, confirmed its authenticity and unique characteristics. The sale shattered previous records, cementing the coin's status as a cultural artifact and igniting debates across the numismatic world. But beyond the monetary value, the story of the 1995 quarter embodies the spirit of discovery. It is a tale that transformed a pocketful of change into a beacon of possibility. Children began inspecting coins with magnifying glasses, retirees joined coin clubs, and treasure hunters scoured vending machines and coin rolls with newfound excitement. It wasn't just about finding a rare coin, it was about the journey, the thrill of possibility, and the hope that something extraordinary might be hiding in plain sight. Collectors began documenting their finds in online forums and social media groups dedicated entirely to the 1995 quarter. These communities became virtual archives, filled with images, serial numbers, and speculation about undiscovered variants. Some users even speculated that a handful of coins had been minted with design elements that never made it to circulation, a Liberty head reverse, perhaps, or a subtle redesign of the eagle's feathers. Whether these claims were fact or fiction, they added layers to the lore surrounding the coin. Meanwhile, historians unearthed memos and correspondence from the mint dating back to the early 90s, revealing internal debates about redesigning the quarter to commemorate the upcoming millennium. Though ultimately shelved, these discussions hinted at prototype designs that may have been struck in very small numbers, potentially including the year 1995 as a test run. While no such prototype has surfaced publicly, the mere possibility continues to fuel theories and speculation. As the years passed, the 1995 quarter transitioned from an object of curiosity to an icon of modern treasure hunting. Documentaries, podcasts, and YouTube channels began chronicling stories of people whose lives had been transformed by a single coin. One family in Oregon reportedly paid off their mortgage with the sale of a rare error coin discovered in a coffee tin. A former janitor in Texas gained national attention after donating his rare 1995 quarter to a museum, where it now resides in a glass case beside historical currency from the Revolutionary War. Even today, new stories emerge. A schoolteacher in Florida recently discovered a strange variant while teaching a lesson on U.S. currency. A child in Colorado found a coin with a strange reddish hue that experts believe may be the result of a chemical experiment gone wrong at the mint. Each new discovery adds another thread to the ever-growing tapestry of the 1995 quarter's mythology. Its allure isn't just in its metal composition or face value. It's in the human stories attached to it, the hands it passed through, the lives it touched, and the mysteries it still holds. From the moment it was minted, the 1995 quarter was destined to be more than a mere transaction tool. It became a hidden legend, a symbol of how even the most ordinary object can hold extraordinary potential. In a world increasingly driven by digital transactions and cashless economies, the 1995 quarter reminds us of a time when value wasn't just measured in dollars and cents, but in stories, discoveries, and shared fascination. Though it may bear the humble face value of 25 cents, in the hearts of collectors, it carries the weight of history, mystery, and a staggering worth, one that, in some circles, has reached the astronomical figure of $95 million. And so, the hunt continues. Not just for the next rare coin, but for the next great story. Because sometimes, history doesn't come wrapped in gold or enshrined in museums. Sometimes, it jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting to be discovered. Next, 1997. A quiet town nestled between winding rivers and rustling forests, there lived a humble coin collector named Marcus. He wasn't famous, and he wasn't rich. But in his small garage, stacked neatly in boxes and cabinets, were thousands of coins gathered over decades. To him, every coin told a story, held a mystery, whispered a secret of the past. One rainy afternoon, as lightning struck in the distance and raindrops danced across the tin roof, Marcus found himself rummaging through an old box he had long forgotten. Dust swirled as he opened it. Inside were several rolls of coins wrapped in faded brown paper. He untied one, and the metallic clink of quarters echoed through the room. They weren't just any quarters, they were 1997 quarter dollars. The kind that had long intrigued collectors around the world. He remembered stories he had read online, late into the night. Tales of rare 1997 quarters that were believed to be normal but were actually far from it. Coins with misstrikes, double dies, off-centers, and even some believed to have secret minting errors that went unnoticed by the general public. Marcus looked closely at the coins with his magnifying glass. One of them caught his eye. It looked different. The 1997 quarter dollar is often overshadowed by the more widely known state quarters that began the following year in 1999. But what many don't know is that the 1997 issue came at a pivotal time in U.S. minting history. It was the calm before the storm, the year just before massive design changes. While the obverse still carried the classic profile of George Washington and the reverse bore the familiar heraldic eagle, it was a year when several experimental procedures were quietly tested. Some quarters from that year, it was later discovered, were minted using test planchets, blanks that were never meant to reach circulation. These planchets came in different metal compositions and weights. A few of them even showed traces of copper-nickel blends not used in any official U.S. coin at the time. But these were never announced to the public. Some escaped the mint, slipping into circulation unnoticed, disguised as ordinary change. That made them extraordinarily valuable. And very rare. Marcus, heart racing, flipped the coin between his fingers. It had a certain sheen. The weight was slightly off. Not much, but just enough that he could feel it. He pulled out his precision scale and dropped the coin onto it. The reading confirmed his suspicion. It was lighter than a typical 5.67 gram quarter. And the edges showed signs of something unusual. He checked the rim, no reading. Just a smooth, flat edge. That wasn't right. Not for a quarter. He reached for his loupe and zoomed in on the details. The "In God We Trust" motto was doubled. Not obviously so, but in the right light, the doubling was unmistakable. His hands began to tremble. Could this be one of the elusive 1997 double-die quarters that had been rumored for years but never fully confirmed? he remembered a forum he once frequented, an obscure place for numismatics enthusiasts. Stories had circulated of private collectors paying outrageous sums for authentic 1997 quarters with verifiable errors. The highest known sale? $97 million. A legendary transaction that supposedly took place between two anonymous collectors in an undisclosed European location. Most dismissed it as fiction. But what if it wasn't? What if he now held in his hand the very kind of coin that could command that price? As he continued examining the coin, Marcus noticed more inconsistencies. The eagle's talons were slightly malformed, and the United States of America lettering seemed misaligned, slanting upward at an odd angle. He knew this wasn't the kind of flaw that happened from wear and tear. This was a minting error. Determined to learn more, he reached out to a seasoned numismatist he knew only by the name Silver Shadow. They had exchanged emails over the years, mostly debating rare coin variations. Marcus sent high-resolution photos of the coin. Within hours, he received a response. It was short. Just one sentence: "You may have found the key to the mystery." The key? Marcus replied, asking for clarity. Silver Shadow explained that in late 1996, the U.S. Mint began testing a new laser-guided minting process. It was never rolled out officially due to inconsistencies in the results. But several test strikes made their way into production lines, by accident or design, no one knew. These test coins bore markers invisible to the untrained eye, microlaser engravings hidden within the design. With new purpose, Marcus took the coin to a friend at the local university who specialized in materials engineering. Using a high-resolution electron microscope, they scanned the coin. Buried within the folds of Washington's hair, in letters smaller than a grain of sand, were coordinates. Actual coordinates. Not just random numbers. The coordinates pointed to a location in Philadelphia, the birthplace of the U.S. Mint. With a suitcase packed and the coin secured in a protective case, Marcus boarded a train bound for Philadelphia. Along the way, he felt the weight of generations of history pressing down on him. This wasn't just about money. It was about uncovering a truth hidden for decades. In Philadelphia, he followed the coordinates to a quiet alley near the old Mint facility. There, half covered by ivy, was a rusted hatch leading underground. A maintenance tunnel, long forgotten. Inside, he found old files, dusty machines, and filing cabinets locked with time. But one drawer had been forced open, and inside were records, blueprints, memos, test logs. Pages stamped, "Confidential, do not release." One memo caught his attention. Dated May 17, 1997. It spoke of a $250 run featuring test compositions for future coinage. The memo noted the project was aborted after only 47 pieces were struck. 47. That was all. Of those, only a handful were verified destroyed. The rest? Unaccounted for. Marcus's coin matched every detail. Back home, word spread. Collectors, dealers, museums, they all wanted a look. One private collector offered him an astonishing $97 million for the coin. The number wasn't arbitrary. It was symbolic. $1 for every year leading up to the minting of the coin. It would be the largest private coin sale in history, eclipsing the famed 1933 Double Eagle sale, but Marcus declined that he believed the coin belonged not in a vault, but in a museum. He worked with curators, historians, and government officials to ensure the coin's authenticity and to bring its story to light. Exhibits were built. Documentaries were filmed. And for the first time, the public learned about the secret 1997 $250 experiment that had remained buried in obscurity. Children marveled at the coin's journey. Scholars debated the ethics of secret minting practices. And Marcus? He found peace not in riches, but in knowing he had become part of history. Years passed. The legend of the 1997 quarter grew. Rumors swirled of other copies still out there, waiting to be found. A new generation of treasure hunters took up the cause. Metal detectors swept parks, beaches, and fields. Every coin roll was opened with hope. Every 1997 quarter was inspected with care, because now, everyone knew the truth, that in the quiet mintage of a forgotten year, hidden behind ordinary design and common appearance, lay a treasure worth more than gold. A coin that once jingled in someone's pocket, passed over for a soda or bus fare, now valued at $97 million, and in the heart of a small-town collector's garage, history had knocked on the door, not with fanfare, but with the simple sound of a coin falling into the palm of someone who chose to look a little closer.